Have you ever met the connector? Well, he ponders, he helps, he creates, he writes, he speaks. He basically connects people and brings them together. I speak about Paul Solano of PS and All Marketing Group. At psandallmarketinggroup.com, you will receive an assembled group of Paul's contacts and connections that cross into many sectors of life. Please contact Paul Solano at 617-240-4130 or psandallmarketinggroup@gmail.com if you are in the market for a wide array of services. Again, please contact The Connector, Paul Solano at 617-240-4130 or psandallmarketinggroup@gmail.com with any questions. And now, here's Paul Solano, the host of Paul Ponders.
Welcome to Hashtag Paul Ponders. I've really enjoyed bringing you fun, informative, intriguing, and pondering podcasts. Many thanks to Hashtag PodPro Entertainment. Today's collaborating sponsor, Scott Albertson of Hashtag Project142.org, Riverworks Credit Union, NMLS number 410564, and Remax Renaissance Realty of Reading. Thanks for listening, rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Let Hashtag Paul Ponders begin. Greetings, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well today. Well, this is another great Paul Ponders episode, and I get to have on our podcast someone who I've come to know and speak with every 2 years, it seems, with the Malden High School Selection Committee of the Alumni Hall of Fame. So I do want to welcome retired First Justice of the PVD District Court, Mr. James D. Barretto. Jim, welcome.
Paul, thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.
It's really great to have you on, my friend. And you're a Malden High School graduate, a class of 1973.
Yeah. Major role in my life, the city of Malden.
Absolutely, without a doubt, my friend. And I'm just for the record, I'm class of 80. And it's really great reconnecting with you when we have those wonderful selection committees. But there was 1 year when you were not on the committee. That's because you were, in fact, one of the inductees, one of the selected inductees.
Yeah, just an extraordinary honor. I still can't believe it. I had to recuse myself, obviously, because I was a candidate for admission, so I couldn't sit with the committee. And I have you and the fellow committee members to thank for even considering me, let alone placing me in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, Jim, it's okay to call you Jim.
Oh,
right?
I prefer that.
Okay, you got it. Well, when you look at, just like when we were looking at the candidates for the selection to the Malden High School Hall of Fame, I look at your career, okay? And of course, it started at Malden High, and then it went on to Suffolk University.
Yep.
And then Suffolk Law School.
That's true.
Yeah, but I guess in 1974, you started working at in the House of Representatives. So if you want to tell us about that experience.
Well, it was a very modest experience. I started working as a house page, literally running errands as a kid. I was only 18 years old. I was living in public housing in Malden. My worldview didn't go much beyond Bowden Street, to be quite honest with you. And suddenly I get this job in the House of Representatives. I walk onto the House floor, if any of your viewers have been there, and it's an extraordinary place. You look up at the murals. I never forget the first time I looked up, I saw Judge Samuel Sewell, who, of course, as you know, played a major role in sending a number of people to their deaths for witchcraft in the 1600s. So you see that public repentance mural, they call it, and many other beautiful murals. The podium has the late President John F. Kennedy's address that he gave just days before he left Boston for Washington, D.C. It's quite a place. So when I got there, it was like, whoa, there's a big world out there.
Absolutely, it truly is. And it really set the tone for what you wanted to do. And I guess you served as an ADA in Middlesex County. correct?
Well, I was in the House of Representatives for a long time. As I said, I started as a humble page. I then put myself through college, put myself through law school in the evening school, and ultimately took the bar and passed the bar and became a lawyer. But I had worked 11 years by that time in the House, so I was kind of um, a son of the House of Representatives. It was my home. I It was actually kind of sad leaving it because I did enjoy it so much, but I wanted to be a trial lawyer, and I felt the best way to strike out in that direction was to become an assistant district attorney. So I applied to the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office, at that time headed up by a young district attorney, Scott Harshbarger, and to my amazement, I got the job. Although I didn't get the exact job I wanted. Um, it turned out that the only job that was open at the moment then was in the Appeals Bureau. And just so others or viewers understand, an appellate assistant district attorney is much, much different than a trial assistant district attorney. I eventually did both.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So you actually worked in that office. Now, was John Droney the DA at that time, or was it Scott
Yeah,
Harshbarger?
no, actually, he had been, as you know, longtime district attorney. Scott Harshbarger had beaten him in that election. And
Gotcha.
so essentially, John went into retirement after a very long tenure as the sitting district attorney. Scott took over and sat for a couple terms himself before then running for attorney general and being elected attorney general. So I was in Scott's office, um, which was, of course, previously Mr. Droney's office, for 4 years.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, at what point did you decide that you wanted to go into private practice?
Honestly, I wish I hadn't. It was a difficult decision. My wife and I were expecting our first child, and just to take people back, in 1980, oh gosh, 86, I was making $18,000 a year. And I was worried that I couldn't support our new baby, our new child. So I left, I think prematurely. I should have been a starving assistant district attorney and stayed. I loved the job so much. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So you co-founded the firm of Bellotti and Barreto
Many years later.
many
I
years later.
left the DA's office. I was in a couple of small firms, ultimately striking out on a solo firm in Malden Square, um, where Jordan Marsh used to be. I know you'll remember it, but not many people do nowadays. I was in that building for a while. And then in 1989, I did establish a firm with my dear friend, Peter Bellotti, who was an assistant district attorney with me. And interestingly, Peter's dad was the longtime Attorney General Francis X. Bellotti, who not terribly long ago passed.
What a great guy he was.
Truly
I always enjoyed meeting and speaking with Frank Bellotti. Just a great guy. Really,
phenomenal.
absolutely class act.
Yeah,
And I believe he had run for governor. I'm sorry
he had. He
that
had
he
run
had.
for governor. Didn't make it, but they were great races, great campaigns.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. Now, you also worked in the Attorney General's office, I guess.
I worked briefly for Attorney General Martha Coakley um, for exactly 1 year, I think to the day. And then lightning struck. Um, Governor Val Patrick selected me and nominated me as an Associate Justice of the Massachusetts District Court. Really, just an extraordinary honor, a twist of fate that I can't say I ever really planned on or even saw coming, but it happened.
Absolutely. That's quite a process, though. If you want to tell our listeners in Paul Ponder's land what it's like to, in fact, be nominated and to go through the process.
It's very rigorous and frankly nerve-wracking. You apply, of course, to the Judicial Nominating Commission, which is a commission that was established way back in the 70s, I believe, by Governor Michael Dukakis. And there's about 21 or so members. Don't hold me to the exact number, but there's a lot of them. And you have to go through that commission 3 successive votes with increasing percentages in order for your name finally to go to the governor's desk. And as you can imagine, it's very difficult. Most don't get through. I didn't expect to get through, but I did get through the 3 levels and finally found my name on the governor's desk. And then the true nerve-wracking aspect comes because you just have to wait. There's nothing you can do. You just wait and hope that the governor looks at his desk and sees your name. I don't know. I'm sure he. I'd like to think he was happy that he picked me.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Sort of like with the Pope, right? Yeah, you wait for the white smoke, I guess, right?
Well, you gotta understand, for a kid from public housing in Malden to being considered for nomination and appointment to the district court, that's a huge. I mean, it's almost hard to put into words, at least for me.
I bet. And I would be remiss if I did not mention our dear friend, the late great Honorable Judge Jeff Aber,
Oh yes,
who was in fact he came out of Malden as well,
he did.
and he in fact was appointed a judge as well. I'm forgetting what year Jeff was
I don't know
appointed.
the exact year, but I can say, as I know you agree, that he was beloved.
Oh, without a doubt, a dear friend, and he left us way too
Yeah,
soon.
terribly early,
Ab,
terribly
ab,
early.
well, without a doubt. So you were the first justice of the PBD District Court. You went there in 2014, I believe.
I did. I was appointed as a judge in 2010.
Hmm.
And what happens is you ride the circuit, you travel. And so I went to every district court in this area. You name it, I served there. Cambridge District Court, Brookline District Court, Concord District Court, Marlborough District Court. The list goes, Lowell District Court, Lawrence District Court. The list goes on and on. And eventually, if you're interested, as I was, the Chief Justice considers you for appointment. It's more or less indefinite appointment, subject to reappointment, uh, as a first justice, which means you no longer travel. You're in charge of one court. As you've alluded to, I was appointed as the first justice in 2014 to the Peabody District Court.
Interesting. So you sat over many trials. Was there any specific type of law case you really like to sit on?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases. Honestly, it's difficult to even express because they all unfolded over a 15-year period. Um, I think I love the jury trials the most. They were extraordinary to manage, and in some ways, my workload was eased. And by that I mean the jury, in my humble opinion, has the tough job. They have to decide guilt or innocence, and in a criminal case, of course, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. And the judge manages the trial and makes certain that the rule of law applies, and of course rules on evidentiary objections, and has a lot of responsibility. But in my opinion, the real work is with the jurors. Um, and I love jury trials, and it didn't have to be criminal. I had countless civil trials as well.
Interesting. Now you have such a wealth of knowledge and experience and all. I'm sure the media has in fact tapped upon you to in fact be a commentator. So if you want to let our listeners in Paul Ponders land know about your work with commentating.
Well, that happened during my practice years. I had my own. In those days, we never heard the word podcast. And congratulations, you have a phenomenal podcast.
Thank you.
Much credit to you. But that was not even invented. So I had my own cable television program in
Oh,
Cambridge. I did it for about 7 or 8, maybe longer. I'm not sure. I think it's about 7 or 8 years. And like yourself, I had a lot of fabulous guests on. I'm not counting myself among them, but I had a lot of good guests on. And somehow commercial television uh, got wind of it. And I was also involved in a major accident out on Deer Island in Boston Harbor. And between my experience with cable television and my role in that terrible accident that I'm referring to on Deer Island, at the time, the station is no longer called the same name. It's now called Boston 25. But the station did an interview of me about that case. And to my surprise, they called me back. And it led to about another 7 or 8 years in which I was their legal analyst. Again, not a judge. That it wasn't even in the realm of possibility yet. In addition to practicing law full time, I was a consultant, a contributor to this particular television station, and I probably was on a couple of hundred times, if not even more than that.
That is fabulous. It really is. Growing up in the Boston area, Malden, listening to BZ radio, I always remember listening to Neil Chiat. Yeah, looking
Yeah,
at the law, right?
brilliant guy. Absolutely brilliant guy. Never got a chance to meet him, but I did listen myself.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Between he and Paul Harvey, how could one go wrong in life,
Yeah,
right?
it's
It's
true.
true. It's true. I love it. Yell, punch buggy, don't punch back. It's
All right,
what
all right,
my
all right.
daughters would say. Absolutely. Now, somewhere in this whole process, if you will, you found time to write your first novel, and that is called Mystic Wind, a legal thriller. So, if you want to let our listeners know about that,
Yeah, that was kind of a passion project. I had always wanted. First of all, I love to read. I mean, I remember being in the Malden Public Library and just reading whatever I could get my hands on. And back in the '60s, I attended Lincoln Junior High School. It's not there right now, at least in the present its present capacity. And I remember looking forward. We used to get these books, paperback books. It was like the Scholastic Book Club. I forget the
sure.
exact name, but I think that was it.
SRA, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and you'd get a book
Right.
for 25 cents, but you'd have to wait naturally a week or 2 or 3 to
Right.
get it, and I remember sitting in a friend of ours' class, 1968, a mutual friend of ours was my social studies teacher, and I remember waiting to get my book, and I loved reading. Well, the reading, of course, somehow I got the idea, maybe someday, who knows, maybe I could write a book. And I became, though, a crazy reader. In fact, until this day, honestly don't know that there's been 10 days of my life I haven't read. I have to read, all right? I have to breathe and I have to read. So I got this idea to write a book, and the idea just sat dormant for years. And while I was practicing, at the time, it was very, very intense, sort of a lot of pressure. And I took this course at the Cambridge Center for Adult Ed on writing a novel, and it was sort of like a way to just relax. And I remember the teacher asked us to write a scene. I wrote a scene. It was in the '90s, and I passed it in, and she was a lovely lady who I occasionally still am in touch with. Wrote me a note on the back of the scene and said, "You have a book in you." And I chatted with her after I got that back from her, and she gave me a referral to a writing group. And everyone in the writing group, although they accepted me, I was shocked. Everyone was published, I think. Almost everybody was published in that writing group. And I started writing what would eventually become, as you've mentioned, my debut novel, and it was called and is called Mystic Wind, a legal thriller.
That is awesome. That is really good. Well, how could our listeners get a copy of this wonderful book?
It's basically everywhere. I mean, I've personally seen it in a number of Barnes and Nobles. It's of course on the 300-pound gorilla is Amazon, I guess, I gather, for the whole world. But it's also on the Apple Books, Kobo. It's in a lot of places. Electronically, it's very easy to get. Hardcovers and paperbacks, though, are still, I'm told, available. The book came out a few years ago, so it's not brand new. In fact, I'm working on its sequel now.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a great segue there. So, somewhere in the near future, you're going to have a second book published. So, if you want to, like, maybe let us know between us
Yeah,
what it's
yeah,
going to be
I
about.
never thought that would happen, Paul, ever. I got the first book in, it won a couple of national awards. The reviews, like, for example, just to mention Amazon, the reviews were, frankly, more than I deserved. They were very, very good, and most people wrote in saying, I hope he writes a second book, blah, blah, blah. And so I flew down to Sarasota, Florida, where my publisher is, and we had lunch one day, and they said, Jim, we think there's a lot of life left in these characters. The protagonist's name is Jack Marino, so they talked about a lot of life being left in Jack and other characters in the novel, and I I I said, "Do you really think so?" I mean, I wrote it as a standalone. They said, "Oh yeah, we think so," and they had signed me to a 2-book contract. So anyway, long story short, although it's not an easy task taking on that again, I did take on a sequel. And I just finished the manuscript. I'm now in the process of revision, and it's due to my publisher, I believe, in August.
Wow, that is awesome. Um, did you experience much writer's cramp and just
Yeah,
have?
well, what you hear out there in the writing world is that the sophomore effort, that is to say, the second book, is a killer. I had the opposite experience. It took me um, terribly many years to write the first book. Lots of starts and stops. Too many, frankly. It's a miracle I even finished it. But the second book, which I eventually started not too long after the first was published, I had my starts and stops here and there, and I was still on the bench. I had to seek an opinion from the Supreme Judicial Court in this state, their ethics committee, whether I could write it at all. Naturally, of course, you got to write it on your own time. So it was nights and weekends for me, but I got it done much more easily than the first book. So I had the reverse experience from what I was anticipating.
That is incredible. That's really something. As we start to wind down, I just want to ask you. This is just something I've thought about. I'm starting to learn more and more about artificial intelligence, this AI world we're in, and all. How did that impact you when you were on the bench, and how does it impact attorneys these days?
Um, Paul, it did not impact me at all. I realize AI has been with us for a few years, but I didn't even realize it day to day until, frankly, recently. It's become, for me at least, because I'm not very computer literate, it's become sort of like my Google. If I have a question, sometimes I'll ask it. But when I was on the bench, I never consulted it ever, not once. And I now hear just in the press, and I'm now back on the media myself. I'm doing some consulting work for WCVB Channel 5. I now hear stories that lawyers are using AI to, for example, cite cases, but occasionally it's wrong. And the case doesn't stand for the legal proposition that the lawyers thought that it did. And so anyway, I am it, it it is some distance from my day-to-day activities, but I think there's some potential. I mean, here's to everything, some potential downside to it.
Hmm. Interesting. All I could envision is that in the imperfect world we live in, I would think that basically the appellate court, all the circuits of appeals will in fact be flooded with people appealing, saying, they cited the wrong case or a case that did not even exist.
Oh, I think there's been a number of those. You're right. I think there's been a number of those instances, certainly throughout the United States, and I suspect we're going to hear even more of them. Maybe the temptation is too much for practitioners and others just to try to, maybe they meet a midnight deadline. Who knows? But there's no excuse for it. It's got it's got to come from you.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, I know you and I could go on for hours upon hours. We may have to have you back again, maybe after the second book finally
Oh,
hits
that'll
the
be nice.
streets, and all.
Yeah.
We'll have to go on a book tour, right?
Yeah, I'd like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It'd be great. And it's been a real joy and pleasure and honor to have you on. And again, one final shout out for Mystic Wind and the book to come.
Yeah, it has a working title, but in the end, the publisher decides on the title. The working title happens to be The Callahan,
Okay.
which is named after the iconic tunnel in
Yes.
Boston, Massachusetts. And I want to thank you, too, for having me as a guest. And I also, if I could sneak this in, it's an
By all
honor to
means.
serve with you on the committee that selects those who are admitted to the Malden High School Hall of Fame. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you.
Absolutely, without a doubt, my friend. And we'll give a shout out for the two great co-chairs we have on the committee, Miss Eleanor Cushing and Mr. Fred
Yes.
Feldman, and the rest of the committee
Thank you for doing that.
all their hard work and all. So, retired First Justice of PBD District Court, Mr. James D. Barretto, Jim Barretto, Malden High School, class of 1973.
A good
Distinguished
class.
Hall of Fame, a great class, indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, and be well, my friend.
Same to you.
Thank you. Hashtag indeed. I trust that you have enjoyed hashtag Paul Ponders. Again, my name is Paul Solano of PS&All Marketing Group, and I may be reached via email at paul@paulponders.com to do some more pondering. Many thanks to my longtime collaborative friend and associate, Chalonzo Amos of Pod Pro Entertainment, in bringing you our fun, exciting, and informative podcast. You rock, Techie Chalonzo. With PS&All Marketing Group, I created a side gig to connect you and get things done. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me at paul@paulponders.com with any questions. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Paul Ponders. Follow us on Twitter at Paul Ponders Pod. Follow us on Instagram at Paul Ponders Podcast. Thank you again for listening to hashtag Paul Ponders, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our website, paulponders.com, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment, hashtag Paul Ponders lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. Hashtag the new radio. Until we meet again, my friend, stay well. Hashtag indeed.